right, let's wait until we're live. We are live now. Thank you, Mike. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to tonight's department budget hearing. Tonight we have one presentation from the Development Services Department. My name is Councilman Amilcar Hernandez. I am the chair of the Operations, Management, and Budget and Government Accountability Committee. This meeting is broadcasting live on HPA-TV's Xfinity Government Channel 96 and Frontier Government Channel 6032. It will also be streamed via HPA-TV.org, HPA-TV Facebook page, and HPA-TV Apple TV, Amazon TV, and Roku TV apps. It will also be made available on the HPA-TV YouTube channel. I'd like to acknowledge everyone present here today. It's going to take me a while since there's so many of us here. We have to my left on the screen, we have Councilwoman Bilodeau. We also have Councilman Gale, and that's about it. We may be joined later with a few more council people on the screen. I'll introduce them if I see them coming up. To begin the presentation, I'd like to introduce Director of Development Services, Jeff Ocker. Jeff, the floor is yours. Please introduce your team that's alongside with you. Good luck remembering all the names and titles. Let's see. This is going to be a test, see if you remember. And then you can start your presentation as soon as you're done presenting everyone.
Thank you, Councilman. Oh, there we go. All right, thank you, Councilman. As mentioned, Jeff Ocker, I'm the Director of Development Services. We comprise 6 divisions, and they're overseen by the folks you have here at the table. We have Director Mike Perez from Polite, Director Paige Berchet, the Small Business Programs, Owen Deutsch, Director, newly appointed Director of Planning, Judith Rothschild, the Director of L&I, a Deputy Director, Randall Davis, Pat Pentelow, the Director of Economic Development, snazzily matching our finance lead, showing how dedicated he is to working with him, and Rob Faircloth, and Selena Diaz, our Director of Housing. So we'll try to go through this pretty quickly because I think we've had quite a bit of time together talking through what we're doing here. But as I mentioned, we have the 6 divisions that we cover, roughly breaks into 2 ideas. One, and it basically breaks into 2 goals that the mayor has given us. On the one hand, we oversee economic, workforce, technology, small business development here in the city. Our goal there is to grow the grand list, and we also oversee planning, zoning, licensing, blight, inspections, and that's to ensure that what we're doing to grow the city is done in a sustainable, safe way that improves the quality of life for all the residents here. So that's how you can think there. The mayor has given us a very strong challenge on that side to become the easiest city in the state of Connecticut to do business with. Bold goal that was given to us, but we're making some big steps forward, and we'll go through. I'll let the directors talk about those as we go through here. So if you flip to the slide just on the staff composition, the emphasis here, just to remind you, that the budget that you're going to see here is for the people almost entirely. The people and the space and the equipment we need to do our jobs. The discretionary budgets and all that have been placed elsewhere. So you need to know the team, and that's what we're pretty proud of here. We're up to total of 88 positions that we're budgeted for. If you look just at the breakdown, 39% are City of Hartford, 61% outside. Race and ethnicity breakdown is pretty diverse. I'll leave that to y'all for goals that we may have there. And of course, we can do better on the gender gap. And that's something we'll work on as we move forward. On the next slide, just for the budget comparison, all in, you're getting the same team for a little bit less. And hopefully, if you look at what we've done over the last year to improve the quality of services to the city around development, planning, zoning, licensing, all of these different key aspects of growing the city, you can see that we've made some large strides forward on the budget we had last year. This year, we're going down a total of 2.1%. Basically, give or take, with some puts or takes we'll go through here if you like, consider us flat to where we were last year. We did not increase headcount. Some of the money moved around out of the Special Development Fund, which is fine. We still will spend and cover all of the expenses that were in that fund before. Just the finance side has found a better way of accounting for those and moving them into buckets that are more appropriate to their use. So that's an accounting difference there in that first line. We are, this budget does reflect all of the puts and takes on the salaries, including the increase for the non-union directors in the department. And then finally, there's one adjustment to the positive on our budget as we've moved the special events coordinator over into an office of the COO, who will have a department overseeing that more directly. So at this point, I'll turn it over to Randall, who will become the master of ceremonies and direct it amongst the directors.
Good evening, council members. So the way we organized the slides tonight, as Jeff already articulated, is we kind of wanted to start based on the different divisions with how the work comes into the department. The first three departments, economic development, small business, and housing, are sometimes the first places that people come because we want to develop the sites, programs, and businesses in the city, whereas planning kind of touches all of it, both at the beginning, middle, and sometimes during and after construction, and then the licensing and inspections. And blight departments are our enforcement units that work to try to ensure that our businesses and our residents maintain things in the way that they're supposed to with regard to staying in compliance with our laws. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to economic development to begin their presentation.
Good evening. By the way, this was an accident. So when you do see that, there's two people that look exactly alike talking, dressed the same, it was totally an accident.
That was one of my questions.
Yeah,
I was so curious.
I'm not lying. He came back into the office and he's like, I'm going home to change, and that's what he came back with. I've been in this all day.
There's no way that's a coincidence.
Just for the record, I even had to go into Randall's office and say this isn't a joke.
We all want to be Pat.
But thank you guys so much for the opportunity to speak. So I'm going to talk a little bit about what our division, economic development, does. So economic development, we're responsible for facilitating city-owned development projects, maintaining and disposing of city-owned parcels, working with developers to assist with underwriting, includes tools at our disposal such as tax fixing agreements, and we also, up until recently, were managing and permitting special events for Elizabeth Park City Hall and all the events around the city. The org chart, go back one sec. The org chart may look a little bit different this year. We actually did end up promoting Mr. William Diaz from project leader to assistant director. I don't think that there's anybody in the city that deserves a promotion more than that guy. He works very, very hard. He's really good at what he does. We also managed to essentially repurpose a position that we've been having difficult time filling from a neighborhood specialist to a senior administrative analyst. This will kind of help the department streamline activities and really develop more of an organizational approach. So it'll be kind of in between an administrative assistant and a project manager. Now you can go to the next slide. Yeah. Good. So as I mentioned, economic development, we're overseeing the acquisition, the disposition of city-owned properties. This year we took in 6 properties, 6 parcels since our last budget, and we've disposed of 5 with 14 that are up for pending disposition. Next one. And then these are just a list of some of the projects that are in pre-development, brownfield, so the environmental cleanup projects, and then development projects that we're currently overseeing. Big one this year that came in was Yukon Student Housing at 64 Pratt. That kind of really changed the tide in terms of the interest that we're getting, not only from businesses that want to capitalize on having 200 students on Pratt Street, but we've also solicited different interests. I won't say it at the time, but different universities are now interested with their student population. You go to the next one. And these are just some of the events that we permitted this year. Big ones: St. Patty's Day Parade, Puerto Rican Day Parade, Symphony of the Park, Susan G. Komen Walk, and many others. We permitted 150 events. That's the next one. Yep, and these are just the numbers that we did: 450 City Hall atrium permits, 250 Elizabeth Park, and 150 permits for special events at various locations around the city. And in total, we estimate that we brought around 350,000 people to the city of Hartford. So if you guys have any questions, or did you guys just want to go into the The next one, okay. Well, I'll give it to small business, oh, I'm sorry, Randall.
No, that's okay. Small business will be our next presentation.
Hi there. As Jeff introduced me, I'm Paige Brochet, the Director of Small Business Initiatives. Great to be here. So a little introduction to my team. So it's myself, a senior admin assistant, and then we recently got allocated for a project manager 1 position, which is vacant currently, but we're looking to hire soon, which is really exciting. So essentially, our division is tasked with a few things. Most of which our main priority is administering a number of different programs, which you can see some of the highlights here for our Neighborhood Investment Fund program, Upper Albany Economic Development Program, Small Business Facade Improvement, among many others. And so our core mission is really to help support these small business programs that provide different grants, loans, and training to small businesses, connect small businesses to different resource partners so that they can get financing, technical assistance, business advising, that sort of support, and also assist them through the permitting process. That's been definitely something we've prioritized as, Judith has worked with making sure that the streamlined process for permitting has been improved upon, and also connecting with folks before they get to planning and zoning, just to make sure that they know kind of what they need as they open their businesses. So since I've joined, we've definitely tried to look and restructure some of the programs, and then also kind of learn from some of the programs that were started towards the beginning of COVID. So that includes HeartLift, Small Business Investment Fund, and now we're kind of taking those lessons and applying them to our Facade Improvement Program, which is a $2 million program, helping to improve some various business corridors and trying to tackle those business facades, as well as our Neighborhood Investment Fund program, which is a $5 million grant program, which is really exciting. So we're targeting a number of different corridors throughout the city for that. Let's see. And then if you go to the next slide, we also just have kind of our ongoing strategic initiatives for this upcoming year that you can kind of see. And as I noted, we have our project manager, which is going to add some extra capacity so that we can tackle some of these programs in-house, which will be, great support to make sure that we can grow and support our small businesses in Hartford. So yeah, a lot going on, a lot of grants and loans that we're administering, and really excited to support the small business community here in Hartford.
Thank you very much, Paige. And a quick comment that I wanted to make is that as you will hear the different directors talk, you will hear them referring to their other directors because the work they do is integrally intertwined. As Paige mentioned, she mentioned Judith's work. She also works very closely with Pat and all of the other directors to help implement her programs because they're all tied. Similarly, I'm going to turn it over now to Selena in Housing, who also works with all of the various directors because the way the programs are designed, they have to work closely together to help bring them about. Selena?
Good evening. So yes, my name is Selena. I'm the Acting Director of Housing. Selena Kaya is Acting Director of Housing, as you can see on the org chart. I have an executive assistant, 3 senior project managers, 3 rehabilitation specialists, 2 positions, and 2 senior admin positions. So the rehab specialists, 2, we do have 2 vacancies that we're trying to fill, but at least one of them. That's what the housing division is comprised of. In the housing division, so we do continue to administer long-standing programs funded by the federal government, HUD, state funding and local funding to provide decent, affordable housing in the city of Hartford. We assist existing homeowners to make necessary repairs to their properties and preserve the current aged housing stock in the city of Hartford. We produce new units for rental and home ownership opportunities through our home program, and we provide home buyer assistance to bring new homeowners to the city of Hartford. 43 housing units were improved through the various programs, including Home Investment Partnerships Program, the Housing Preservation Loan Fund Program, the Sustainable Housing Solutions Program, the Senior Homeowner Rehabilitation Program, our House Hartford program, and the new Employee Home Buyer Assistance Program. Of the 43 units, 7 units were new rental units through a new project Uptown building that's funded with home funds. We have 4 new homeowners, 2 used House Hartford for down payment assistance, and 2 actually used our employee home buyer assistance program. And 32 units were improved using our various rehabilitation programs. And then we also oversee the Fair Rent Commission. We have a staffer that oversees the Fair Rent Commission. We received 61 complaints since July through December, and 46 cases were adjudicated by the Fair Rent Commission. We do continue to receive our federal funding. If for any reason, if there are any shortfalls or any federal cutbacks, we will work with the HUD or our city admin to determine how we move forward with that. Yes. And then council recently passed increasing our employee home buyer assistance program up to $40,000. So we hope to assist at least 10 more city employees purchase a property in the city of Hartford with the increase. My office also is reviewing home submissions to fund developments throughout the city for home ownership and rental properties. And we're working with economic development and the state to develop and administer a pilot program to create home ownership units and vacant lots in the city of Hartford. Any questions?
Thank you very much, Selena. Now we're going to turn it over to planning. And again, just because I think it's important to reiterate these things, we talked about how we were setting up with the development side of the department first. So economic development, small business, and housing, people come to these units to build new things. And all of them have to work integrally with planning on whether or not those things can be built, and if they can be built, what they need to be like. So I'll turn it over to Owen, who can talk about some of the planning initiatives and what they're doing in that department.
Good evening, council members. As Deputy Director Davis mentioned, my name is Owen Deutsch, Acting Director of the Planning and Zoning Division. As can be seen in the organizational chart, there are fewer vacancies now than last year, and the department is working diligently to have those remaining vacancies filled shortly. And then we can go to the next slide also, please. It was another busy year for the Planning and Zoning Division between plan review, zoning enforcement, comprehensive planning, and transportation projects and engagement. Just for the fiscal year so far, there have been close to 1,000 land use applications that have been approved or otherwise closed. That includes such major developments as 65 Elm, the first phase of the Mary Shepherd Place redevelopment, and the Hartford Hospital Campus Master Plan, and about 600 new dwelling units. There were also about 300 zoning enforcement cases that were closed, which is more than the number of cases opened over that period, so the total number of cases needing to be closed has gone down. On the comprehensive planning side, the Parkville and South Downtown neighborhood plans are nearing completion, after which there will be 5 neighborhood plans remaining. The draft Homestead Avenue redevelopment plan will be available this month, and the design of the Anicello Public Plaza will be going into construction this summer. There's also been a lot of work leading up to a busy year for traffic calming and transportation projects. Traffic calming measures are expected to be installed on multiple streets in the Blue Hills neighborhood and most of Hillside Avenue. We have also received grant funding to make traffic calming on Hampton Avenue permanent. The Farmington Avenue streetscape is in construction, and the North Main Street streetscape is anticipated to begin construction in 2026. A new vendor was contracted for the city's scooter program, and trail projects are also in various stages of completion across the city. Finally, we're developing a pilot program for one of the state's first automated traffic enforcement systems together with HPD. All of these projects have depended on public outreach. In addition, correct, same thing, yes, council member. All of these projects have depended on public outreach. In addition to over 100 NRZ and other community meetings planning staff have attended. Staff also responded to about 15,000 emails to the Planning Division email account and are posting updates on all major social media platforms. And then in the next slide, this is just an illustration of some of the efforts mentioned around the Parkville and Homestead plans. citywide traffic calming, violation abatement, and general public engagement.
Thank you very much, Owen. Now we're going to turn to our Division of Licensing and Inspections. And as I said, the first few groups talk about how they help people to get things built and put them into place. And our next units talk about how we work to maintain those and ensure that people stay in compliance. I'll turn it over to Judith Rothschild, Director of Licensing and Inspections.
Good evening, Councilman, and also online, I think, Councilman and Councilwoman, if she is still available to us this evening. Pleasure to introduce to you your update on licenses and inspections for the City of Hartford. We do have 4 major divisions: the Housing Code Enforcement, Building and Trades Division, the Licensing and Inspections Division, and the Rental Licensing Program initiated by the Council a few years back now, and I'm excited to give you updates on all of them, particularly what we see as the great effect of your programming that we are administering for the city. We also have weights and measures back up and active, and have conducted a great amount of inspections this year with a new staff person. So our team is large. We have 13 housing code inspectors. We have 3 vacancies. We just today sent out offers to fill those 3 vacancies, so we should be at full staff hopefully in a few weeks. We have Inspector 2s. We have just 2 vacancies for that, which is a great improvement over last year. We have a couple of admin assistant and analyst positions open, but we have otherwise restaffed well. Breaking it down, the Building and Trades Division first, I gave you some numbers in regards to the numbers of plans reviewed and inspections performed, applications processed and such. You can see those. Our collection of fees for permits and for licenses through December 2024, quarters 1 and 2 of fiscal year 24, is over $5 million. And we have done some extensive work that I'd like to just briefly add to this slide. First of all, we have worked hard to provide good training opportunities to our staff, both the building inspectors, the building plan reviewers, and the permitting staff as well, sending them, the last group, to permit tech classes to learn better the trade of permitting processing. That seems to be improving on all those scores. We have also improved the processes between the department and divisions that touch permitting as it goes through the process of application through issuance, particularly between the fire marshal's office, our office, and inside DDS, between building permit processing, building department, and planning and zoning. We've also found and corrected a number of system performance issues in how our online system operates, and that has resulted in an increase. I'm happy to report, I think it has been reported previously, but it's certainly worth repeating, a 57% reduction in the time it takes from the application of a permit to the issuance of a permit between this period of time in 2023 to the period of time in 2024. So it's not on the slide, but the same period of time, we have really increased the speed of getting your permits through the city of Hartford. And with the goal of making Hartford the easiest city in Connecticut to do business with, we are working hard to make that a reality on the permitting side, and have been effective in doing so. And we're aiming to, of course, do even better. In regards to rental licensing, on the next page, which is up, we have just 3 staff members. We have a program supervisor and 2 administrative assistants. One's actually promoted to senior. We have, according to the slide, through December of 2024, 582 license applications filed. Now, these are building applications, not units. These are entire buildings. At this point in our program, your program, we have in the program all buildings that have 10 or more residential units in the building. So this can go from 10 all the way up to massive numbers of units within one building. So that's 582 license applications that have been filed. I'll add to that, as of yesterday, we're up to 617 buildings have filed for application. We have, as of yesterday, not 132, but 147 rental licenses issued. That is a good number less than the number of applications made, and that's because of the extensive process by which the rental license is required to go through before it can be granted. The inspections that are part of licensing are from planning and zoning, building code, housing code, fire safety code, lead safety, and many requirements regarding filing of information with our division so that we know who the owners are, how to contact them, and know that they're properly situated to operate as a rental facility within the city of Hartford. And simply that takes some time. When we do our inspections, if we find violations, they must be corrected before we can move the process forward. And we are finding violations. And a note on that, what we have found, and this is not something that's been publicly announced until now, is that the number of 311 complaints for housing code violations, and also from other sources like Development Services Department calls, emails, other referrals from persons, or even our inspectors spotting stuff out on their calls, the number of complaints has reduced by 36% from the same period of last year. So we had last year 2,604 complaints from all those categories. This year we're reporting 1,628. And although there may be causes outside of the rental license program, I propose to you that the rental program is the primary reason why these calls are down. People are having their buildings, their common areas, their units inspected and corrected as part of this program, resulting in a reduction in the need to call the city for help. People are being served by this program very, very well, and we're proud of that number. The next tier in the rental license program is the 4 to 9 buildings, 4 to 9 unit buildings. Those come into the program on July 1st and have to be filed by October 31st. And for your knowledge, that will bring in another over 1,000 more buildings into the program for the licensing procedure to start and go through inspection. So all in all, we will have a couple of thousand, close to, in the program by the end of next year. And we are busy and it is working. So thank you for your support.
Thank you very much, Judith. And finally, we're going to turn it over to... I skipped the whole department, didn't I?
I have one more. And Randall and I wore gray, but that wasn't planned either. I just wanted to mention, just so, you know, as a segue. So housing code enforcement is my last piece. We have, as I mentioned, the inspectors are up to 13 very soon. The complaints are down, the inspections are many. We have, in addition to what you see from housing code enforcement, I just want to mention 2 additional things that we are doing with the housing code and housing code enforcement. First is it's DDS that leads the Problem Landlords Task Force for the City of Hartford. Mayor's initiative, and it is comprised of members of every department in the city that has anything to do with housing, which is every department in the city. We have a meeting the first Thursday of every month, collaborating on properties that we have identified as especially riddled with code violations or criminal activity in or around the building or neighborhood, or both, and it's usually both. And using our tools and our information, we have been very effective in getting rid of some very bad property problems in the city, and we continue to work closely on that. We are also formed a subcommittee which met today and will be meeting again next month to identify the worst of the properties, the worst of the landlords of those properties, so that we can concentrate on putting those landlords and those properties right. And finally, we are happy to announce, as you may know, that the tenant liaison position has been posted. It went live. It is online, and we will be expecting to have that position filled within a couple of weeks. The posting will close, and we will look forward to a great applicant for that position. Thank you.
Apologies, Judith.
That's all right, Rena.
And now we're going to turn it to Mike Perez, Director of Blight Remediation for the City of Hartford.
Good afternoon, council members. My name is Mike Perez. I'm the Director of Blight Remediation for the City of Hartford. So in our division, we have 3 inspectors that are also licensed building inspectors. We have a senior project manager and a senior analyst. I think one thing that we've done a good job of is retain talent. Everybody on this team has served the city at least 10 years. So I think it's been it's a remarkable thing that we've been able to keep that much talent in-house. And I think it shows in the results of what they've been able to bring to the table. This first slide just has some numbers and stats solely related to enforcement of the blight ordinance. Our inspectors and our team do a lot more than just look after the blight ordinance. We pride ourselves on communicating with other departments that also police quality of life issues like the health department, Department of Public Works, police, fire marshal's office, as well as the other individual divisions within the Department of Development Services. An example of that is our blight team currently is trying to focus on remediation of vacant and blighted properties. So properties that we come upon where homeowners reside that have aging housing stock or repairs beyond the financial means of those occupants. Those are properties that we would refer to our division of housing so that they can use their dollars to help those owner occupants of occupied properties where folks are already living. We also refer problems like that to outside partners like the Hartford Community Loan Fund, so that they can get the assistance that they need or get pointed in the right direction to rectify issues on those occupied properties, because the city does have an aging housing stock with a lot of maintenance problems in some of the older neighborhoods and an inability on the part of owners, local owners, to take care of stuff that needs to be taken care of before it gets serious. So with regards to vacant properties, one of the things that we've continued from last year is a citywide survey identifying every vacant parcel that has a vacant structure on it in all the neighborhoods in the city. So we stayed away from the Meadows, which doesn't have a lot of residential area, and we focused more on parts of downtown, but all of the neighborhoods. We identified between last winter and this winter 560 parcels that have vacant structures on them. But so far this fiscal year, we've seen 31 of those properties get restored to constructive use with full permits, full clean inspections from our housing department. And so those are 31 buildings that before this fiscal year were vacant and blighted, and it didn't offer housing to anybody, and now they're back online. Of those 560 vacant properties, roughly 35% of them are works in progress, where work is ongoing with permits in place, with inspections, checking on how the work is going. So our main goal is putting a dent in the number of vacant and blighted properties in the city. And we will also respond to complaints regarding occupied properties, of course. In addition to formal enforcement, outreach is important for us. You know, the first communication we have with an owner is not to say, hey, we're going to come after you with fines and try to take your property if you don't listen to us. It's to try to partner them with resources that can get the property over the finish line sooner rather than later. But we have been prepared to go after properties that have hit a dead end, properties that do not have any other recourse, whether because they're underwater The owner is nowhere to be found. We have strategies and plans in place to use priority liens against those properties to go and take them from landlords that are doing nothing with them or have sort of walked off the face of the earth. And that's something that's relatively new for Connecticut. There's not a whole lot of other municipalities foreclosing on blight liens in the way that we have. We've survived several legal challenges to our process. I think we have a good due process in place that is fair to owners and gives them access to appeal, to appellate mechanisms. But Hartford has sort of led the way in acquiring property, not through eminent domain, but by a quicker foreclosure process of blight liens and tax liens in order to get them into the hands of our economic development team so that they can be turned around. So at this point, happy to take any questions about our process or any of the, and the next two slides are just, I think there's maybe 8 properties that were restored to, fully renovated, restored to constructive use this fiscal year. 8 out of the 31 that I mentioned. And if the panel has any questions, I'm more than happy to answer.
Thank you very much, Mike. That concludes our presentation, and we turn it back to you, council members.
Thank you, Randall. Let me see who's on the screen. So we have, we also have Councilman Thomas and Councilman Mitchell that have joined us as well. I'm going to break the rules a little bit here. I'm going to start asking questions myself. I never give my the opportunity to ask first. I'm going to do that now, only because I didn't write them down, so I don't want to forget them. I want to start with, see, I did make a comment here somewhere. On your presentation, you mentioned that you have already captured almost $5.5 million in revenue, general fund revenues, which is 80% of what you had in the budget. So in half a year, you already got 80% of it. Do you have any projections of what that will look like by the end of the year?
We're going to give it to Rob Faircloth.
It's really depending on what comes in this next 3 months, because spring and summer are really busy for construction. So like if Hartford Hospital submits their permits, then we can see a very large number. Last year we had the tower at the Children's Medical. That was $4.5 million. So Hartford Hospital could be another large sum of money that comes through our shop if it becomes before 6:30. So it really depends on the large projects and when they come in.
Okay, perfect. Now, an easy question now. For the licensing division, on your budget, I see on row 1,434, that's the other, you may not have it there, or you may, not sure. On the detail one, there's a $75,000 for equipment, for office equipment service contract. There's never been any money in that line item, at least for the last 4 years. Is there anything in particular that's you intend to do this year? Licensing, I'm looking.
I think it's under the wrong account name. That's really for emergency board ups. We were splicing it out from the economic development line, because we had a blight fund that we were using for emergency board ups, but that fund has kind of been depleted. So when someone breaks into a city-owned property or even a vacant property, we call our on-call contractor, Kapora, and they go out and board it up. So that's what the 75K is for.
Okay, thank you. Now let's move on to grants. So when I look at your grants, which is a huge portion of your entire budget, aside from the general fund, there's about $11.5 million that are one-time ARPA funding from the federal government. 11.5, I just did the calculation. It's not there. I just did it myself. That's about 11.4 something. That's ARPA funds from federal government. That's one time. And we know that expires now, coming up, technically December of 2026, but it's slated now for to be spent this year, this coming fiscal year. how is your department preparing to have a year without the ARPA funding? Now, we hear constantly, not only on the news, from every public sector agency, that, you know, when ARPA funds goes away, it brings a lot of issues with departments, you know, either running in deficit or running into, oh, we had staffing that was already allocated to that. And I don't see a lot of FTEs on these ARPA funding, to be honest, but there's also services and programming that relies on that. How is the department preparing to face that issue?
So the ARPA funding, it's, and I haven't done the calculation that you did, but it's in various different pots. In each of the programs that we have, the ARPA funding is programmatic specific, which means we are intending to run the specific program, and the program will sunset when it is completed and or those ARPA dollars are done. So they are not programs that we have that are going into the future. We have 2 positions that were funded, but it is through state ARPA dollars that we didn't request. They came through the state, and the money was specific to funding 2 positions. So we will have to figure out how to manage that after 2026, but all of the other ARPA dollars that we have are programmatic. We did have some ARPA-funded positions, but we've worked with our finance department, and those positions have getting rolled into our general fund, and we started that strategy over a year and a half ago so that we had planned to do it, and I believe we rolled 2 in this year, and I defer to finance on the ones we have left to do, but we only have a couple that refer to salary. The rest are all programmatic. When those programs are done, the funds will be gone, if that makes sense. Did that answer your question sufficiently?
Yep, thank you. Section 8. So Section 8 for this year, your grant expenditure projection is to be about $66 million in Section 8 for this year that we're at now. For next year, the recommended, or not the recommended, but the grants, the expectation is to have $46 million, which is $20 million less than what you're expecting to spend this year. What's the impact to the community having $20 million less in Section 8?
So I didn't realize it was a 20 million cut, but there is a HUD shortfall that was not, the city's fault or anyone's fault. It's countrywide shortfall. And so we have been working with HUD to triage how that shortfall will affect the city of Hartford. Thus far, it has not required us to lose any vouchers. We continue to receive the same number of vouchers. What we have done until we determine what's going to happen with the shortfall is we're not losing vouchers. However, when they turn over, we're just not reissuing them, if that makes sense. And then until we know what HUD is going to do, if they're going to, what they're looking at other municipalities and seeing what they're doing with their funding, and if they're not using it properly or they don't need it, then they're reallocating to different municipalities to fill those funding gaps. But as of right now, it hasn't affected us. We continue to issue vouchers. Again, when they turn over, we're just not reissuing them, we're holding them.
Okay, thank you. My last question is to Judith. Let's go to Judith. So I can't quote some of the numbers you provided, and I was really horrible at taking notes, so I didn't. But when you were talking about the rental licensing piece, you said by October you expect to have a total of 1,000 or 1,000 more applications. Is that?
By October, we should have another over 1,000 more buildings in the program. Applications will be due by October 31 for the next group, including 4 to 9s.
Okay, so, and I understood the amount of work that it takes to actually review these applications and go through the process of all the different inspections. You mentioned them. I'm not questioning that at all. But what I do see is the potential of us having so many applications and a very slow process of reviewing them because of the amount of work that it takes. Do you see any issues trying to catch up at some point when these applications are going to continue coming? How do we take care of the level of applications that have already been submitted versus the processing of every single one of them and the work that it takes. Do you see a little bit of an issue there? And if so, what would be the plan? Is there any alternative or any way to remediate that in order to catch up a little bit more?
We're challenged. I could say that we prioritize the bigger buildings. We have 100% compliance as far as applications have been made for the 40-plus buildings. The 10 to 39s, we have over 80% applications in, and we're pursuing enforcement on the balance. So getting those through the process is our priority because that affects most the bigger number of the tenants. The inspections also take longer on the bigger buildings. So there'll be more buildings, but the inspections should take less time when we get to the next sect. It remains to be seen if we can process them at a reasonable speed. I can tell you that we've gotten the systems in good shape. We've got our process in good shape. Coming from a place where this was a brand new program and having to format how we ran it was a good piece of time up front, but it's smooth now. We also have the electronic ability to make applications, which is moving things along. We're watching it carefully at this point. It's a challenge. It may become a bigger challenge.
Yeah. And last question, I promise. It's more of a follow-up to this. So if you, based on the number of properties that we have, buildings, whether it's 10 tenants or more, less, whatever the different classifications we have, do you see what's the percentage of buildings that have not applied, that are violating the application mandate based on this ordinance, and do you foresee that happening also with the 4 less tenants, which are the smaller ones that's coming up now for October? Do you see a trend of violations in the application process?
So the percentage that hasn't applied is about 16% at this point that's in the process of enforcement. When we were doing the 40 pluses, we had a percentage that hadn't applied either, but through the enforcement process, 100% became compliant. I expect the same result with the ones that are currently owing us an application. Most people do respond to the potential of paying fines per day if they don't comply, which is what our ordinance allows us to do, and we do. So, I think what also works is when we celebrate the landlords that have produced compliance, that have cooperated, that have, and the city being able to state to the city, to the citizens and to the public that this program works, and having the tenant organizations help us get the word out that this is a program that benefits tenants, and get the cooperation of tenants in getting access, landlords in compliance. I think, we, as we age in this program, and we're still fairly young, are getting some good word out ourselves, and the production of the program, the success of it, I think will give us some good push.
The violators, is there a correlation between that and whether they are out-of-state landlords or not? Is there a correlation between the ones that are not applying versus the ones that are with in-state or out-of-state landlords? Is there a correlation or not at all?
I don't have a number for you on the percentage of them. I could tell you we have non-compliant landlords out and in the city. I mean, we have out-of-state certainly that are compliant as well, but we have both.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Councilman Gill.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll pick up with the Section 8 that we were discussing a little bit ago. And a couple of questions regarding it. It's my understanding Section 8 is we contract out. So one of the questions I have is, when does that contract come up, and what is the process for renewing that contract, and how many? I mean, I know traditionally Imagineers was one of the large contractors. I don't know if they're the sole contractor. I also don't know, I know the Hartford Housing Authority administers Section 8, but I don't know if that's in this budget or if they have their own.
Right.
You're shaking, they have their own
They
sections,
have their own
okay.
budget, yes.
So this is Imagineers and somebody else maybe, or maybe all Imagineers.
Just
So
Imagineers.
it's all, when does the contract come up?
So it's per fiscal year, so it will expire June 30th. With the, I have to look at the contract to see, because we do have some, they're allowed to renew it, I think up to 3 times, I believe, but I'd have to look to see where we are in that, in the terms of that contract.
So it's a one-year contract?
It is a 1-year contract, and they renew it annually.
And it's your department that reviews it and signs it?
Yes.
And it's June 30th that it, does this ever go out to an RFP?
It has, so we considered it a couple years ago, a previous director, but because Imagineers has been administering our program for quite some time, and they do a very good job, and we've had great ratings, we've kept it with Imagineers, so we have not put it out for RFP in a while, a long time, as far as I'm aware.
The director started the presentation by pointing out the large reduction in your budget that was coming from the line item of Special Development Fund. And I certainly can see that. There's a over $1 million difference in that line item year over year. And looking back, it looks as though that Special Development Fund has been used. So I'm interested to know, what was it previously used for? So, you know, what are we missing? Or has this money, you know, is somebody else going to be taking over some of the same
Yeah, so
same projects?
I'll let Rob go through line by line on it, but basically my understanding is over the last X amount of years, we'd accreted certain expenses that we were covering. So we had things associated with pre-construction documentation and things like that for city-owned properties. We have some overage that the previous administration agreed to cover for the Bushnell Park carousel. It was cats and dogs in there, and to the finance, they wanted to put the money in places where it was more representative and, you know, more appropriate. Rob can go through.
So the money didn't go away. We're just using a different funding source for that, for those programs. We have some.
Which is, since it's not your budget, whose budget is it? What's the funding source?
They're dollars that are sitting in a special revenue fund for projects that either came in under budget or the allocations weren't spent. So we're going to utilize them to fund these programs in this fiscal year. So the work is not going to stop. We're still going to do the same things we've done every year with this, but just funding it from a different place.
Do you know where I would find that
can get you
in this
that.
budget book?
I don't think you'll find it spliced out in the budget book, but we can get you exactly where that money is.
That would be appreciated.
Not a problem.
If you could follow up with it. You know, as you started, I leaned over to Councilman Thomas. I said, this department is the most important department in the city in terms of our future. Sure did. And you know, it's really true because you know, our future relies on having a city that can fund itself, and we're not going to fund ourselves unless we have properties that can pay property taxes. We're not going to have properties unless they can be built and maintained, and that's you all. So, you know, really look to you, and I'm happy to hear about the ability to move the building permits faster. I think, you know, for those of you that have been here a while, you know these are things that have been very important to me in my time on council. And you also know that I've along with other colleagues, we've added money to your budget year over year to try to make sure that you had the tools to do these things, especially both planning and zoning, making sure you had enough spaces there, you know, for planners so that you can get the stuff in and move it, as well as building inspectors so you can get the stuff inspected once they come in. It's been distressing that you've had problems finding bodies to fill those spots. And I guess we talked to Human Resources yesterday about that, and we're working on those things. They're working on those things as well. But there's these other intractable issues that present impediments to development. We talked earlier, and you have it in your presentation, about some of the properties that need remediation and the monies that you're getting for them. But of course, those properties are all city-owned properties. We have another whole slew of properties in the city of Hartford that are not city-owned properties, but they're privately owned properties. But they're owned by people who simply do not have, and are probably never going to have, the ability to deal with the costs that, at least the current costs that remediation seems to require. And so I know, and I've spoken to several of you about very specific projects where development is just stalled. You know, there's a piece of property, it's vacant, there's an owner who's got money, who's willing to build on it, but it's the remediation piece that's stalling the project. And I'm just wondering if there's, you know, going forward, have we looked at this issue? Do we have any thoughts, any strategies, anything we're working on to try to move some of those properties along?
Yeah, are you specifically referring to brownfields?
These
Like
would be
for
brownfield.
like for environmental remediation? Is that
Yeah,
what you're talking
yeah.
about?
I mean, class, I'll give you a very specific example because I just talked to William Diaz about it. Dunn's River bought a piece of property on North Main Street. It was an abandoned gas station. It was sitting there abandoned for years. They bought it saying, well, we're going to put up a nice restaurant. Well, this is a great thing. We all would love to see a nice Dunn's River have a very nice restaurant at that end of Main Street where it's looked pretty sad for quite some time. But they immediately ran into a brownfields issue with a lender that says, all the lenders say, well, we're not touching that. This is, you know, and their response is, well, I guess we're going to rent it out to a used car dealership. Okay. Not exactly, I think, what the city's long-term strategic plan would like to see, but.
I mean, the sad reality of the brownfields program is all of Connecticut is highly contaminated, and this is a statewide issue. It's not just specific to Hartford. So our Department in Economic Development, we apply quite frequently in every round of brownfield. We were just awarded, what was the number? Nine?
Yeah, for
the data center behind the
9
ball
million.
field.
Yeah.
That came in for demo and remediation at $9.4 million. So, you know, we just put in that. We frequently put in different properties every round for brownfield. It's just there's state dollars and there's only so much to go around. So, I think that I don't think that your question is really. It's not really a unique to Hartford thing. I wish we could get all the money for it, right? There's a ton of properties that I would clean up if we have the resources, but the bottom line is they're limited and they're state funded.
Well, I guess what I'm looking at, it strikes me that there are times when you're partnering up with a developer to get money for a particular project. But it also strikes me that you're not, and maybe we can't do this, or maybe we could, kind of bundling up a bunch of smaller properties and as opposed to, you know, $9 million for one particular property to get it cleaned up. Maybe there's 5, 6, 7, 8 other little properties that we don't own, but you could help partner with the developer to get them moving. I just throw it out there as something that certainly this council member, and I think everybody would like, you know, like some thought going into and some movement on over time, if it could happen.
I'd be happy to sit down with you outside of this meeting, discuss strategy to move that forward.
Yeah. And if I may, two things to add to that one. So just a couple things we've discovered in terms of, you know, we mentioned the money there. The state has been much more willing to support brownfield projects when there's a very clear path to what's next. So we've been presenting our biggest projects to them as, here's what needs to be done, but here's what we're going to do with it. And that's getting their attention. So that's one strategy we're taking. Secondly, look, there's certain properties here, you know, as much as we love and appreciate the local developers, some of these things are too big for, you know, some things require international developers to come in, look at one of these big properties, say a Danny Corp or something like that, as part of a portfolio. And there's going to be some risk. They've got the capital, that's what we're going to need. So we're trying to get more attractive to the state funds. We're trying to professionalize and play up the value of these properties here in Hartford to attract some of the players that have the private capital behind them, because if they're going to accrue the economic benefit of their development, they should definitely be a player in that.
Yeah, no, and I appreciate that, but as I said, there's these little things. And these are the kinds of things, just so you have it in mind. The big developers don't come to me, but all the small guys do.
Yeah.
And I got a dry cleaner, okay? This guy's been running his dry cleaning business for 40 years. He and his father bought the thing 40 years ago. He says, this is my 401k. Well, it just went down the tubes because he can't sell it to anybody. So what do you got? You got a property. He's going to retire at some point, just walk away from the property, leave it there. It's just sitting in a neighborhood. It's going to end up being a little bit of a blight, right? I mean, that neighborhood would be, it's the rest of the neighborhood's pretty well intact. I mean, it would be nice if we, the city, had some sort of program that would help move those little kind of things where it's not Danny Core, but it's meaningful to, in this case.
Those are the ones that are heartbreaking. Somebody's got a dream, they've got a spot, and then suddenly there's what, underneath it. But I love the idea. Let's sit down and talk afterward, because there is, if we create a portfolio of these smaller properties that need the work, well, then you can roll it up to a single funding source, a single sponsor. That's definitely worth pursuing. We appreciate that.
So, second development issue, we have, and I know we've had many conversations about this. We've run into some issues with the MDC, and you do have several folks within the city that have been actively working with the MDC to try to, move that. I noted that in your presentation, you put down 31 Kenyon Street as something that was in the process of development, but really 31 Kenyon Street looks to me like it's completely stalled. And just wondering if there's any kind of an update on that, and then more broadly, how are we feeling about our relationship with the MDC at this point in time? Do we feel as though the MDC now is prepared to be a partner in ongoing projects as opposed to being what I see as having been a roadblock?
Pat, you want to take Kenyon? I'll take the relationship.
I can speak to Kenyon. We've been in contact with the developer and the project manager. We actually extended. Their tax agreement was set to expire. We actually extended it a year, so it actually expires November of this year. But we actually just heard back from them, and the project is just stalled. They haven't heard back from. There's still issues with MDC, and there's funding sources that are an issue. So we're trying our best to work with them, but again, when people are unresponsive and it seems like funds are limited on their end, there's only so much you could do. And we actually asked if they would need us to extend it one more time, and we haven't heard back from them yet. So, but we are actively trying to get that one off the ground.
Yeah, so the broader relationship, Councilman Gale, thank you for setting up the meeting that we had, about 6-8 weeks ago now, with the MDC leadership. I'm feeling very positive about this. Check it with them, but we've had follow-up meetings. There were some basic issues of communication and timing on some of the larger, some of the items that would have a very large impact on the development of a property. For instance, MDC was getting us the data and the information on that later than we needed it, right? So it was like post-closing. So it wasn't like, oh, well, your hood's not quite big enough, it's going to be a few extra $1,000, take it out of your contingency. We were finding out about some of these larger MDC issues and costs after closing, once the development is already going. And that was just way too late to do that. So simply moving the communications up, setting up some regular communications at the right levels, right? You don't need me arguing over engineering. I don't need necessarily their engineers are arguing over zoning, and they don't want to. So we the last meeting, the report that I said, again, I invite you to confirm this with the MDC, but they were saying, 80 to 90% of the requests and the things we're working on are now in that happy path where we're going through, the process is being followed. The exceptions, that's something that myself and Director Levesque have been taking on. I got it right. Personally, if there's an issue that comes up, he's coming to me, I'm going to him. So we're just trying to understand each other better, get the communications ordered, just regain some respect for the craft that each of us bring to the table, because in the end, we just want those houses occupied safely, comfortably. We want the developments developed. So we're all in the, marching in the same direction, but I do believe that that relationship is going in the right direction.
Thank you. Yeah.
Councilman Mitchell. Councilman,
Can you hear me now?
Now we can. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, I was struggling to unmute. Just a couple questions. Thank you all for the presentation. A question first about traffic safety, traffic calming measures, and I couldn't see who was talking about this when it was talked about, so whoever can answer it, I'll be delighted. I know that mostly means like those, the Jersey barriers and the traffic diversions, and I assume it also includes speed bumps and bike lanes? Is that right?
That's partially correct, Councilman. Speed bumps are mostly implemented by the Department of Public Works, and we coordinate with them on all of these projects, but bike lanes and other traffic calming measures are often initiated by our department.
Okay, but it's you guys in DPW and I guess parking enforcement down the road working together.
I'm sorry, I didn't catch all of that question.
It's you guys and DPW together.
That's correct. We coordinate with them, our staff and bike and pedestrian coordinator especially, almost every day on these measures.
Gotcha. So then my question is this, because there's been a moratorium on enforcement of parking violations in the bike lanes for about a year now, right? It's violation of ordinance, from what I can tell, ordered by the mayor. I can't get an answer on if it's ever going to be lifted. I know there's a bike lane near my house and it's just a parking lane all the time, which actually creates a hazard because the street is designed for a bike lane. And now it's just perilous. I know also, I've been complaining about this for years, the protected bike lane on Weathersfield Ave, there's no enforcement. And now not only is there no enforcement for lack of signage and caring, but now there's an affirmative order of the mayor, don't enforce bike lane parking violations. So, one, are you aware of that? And two, are you doing anything about it?
Yes, Councilman, I can begin the answer to that question, and then if the Deputy Director would like to step in. We did have some awareness of that. We work with the Hartford Parking Authority on many of our projects, so in that capacity. My understanding is that was a selective moratorium, which was since ended to begin full enforcement again. Otherwise, we don't have much involvement in the enforcement side of HPA's operations as much as design.
Yeah, you got everything.
Well, let me say, you should check with your boss because I was told it was going to end in February, and then I got a call, no, they wanted to extend it through March. And then last I heard, it was just extending indefinitely. And the last I observed, which was maybe 4 days ago, it was still not being enforced. And again, it was the whole city, because 3 restaurant owners, I think none of whom live in the city, complained. The whole city had no bike lane enforcement. And, we can decide as a city that we don't want bike lane enforcement, right? That we want to sort of move backward from how other cities are doing. But you should know that that's where we stand. We are not enforcing bike lane parking, and you should probably look into it. I'll move on to another question, which is concerning this is for Director Rothschild. I've asked before about, there was meant to be an online system to follow complaints, both for individual tenants who make housing complaints to follow their progress in getting remediated, and for this body, for council, and for advocates to be able to see where the complaints are coming from, how quickly they're being resolved. And I've been hearing for now the better part of 2 years that soon that'll be online where we can all see it. Where are we? Is that online now? Are we there now?
Thank you, Councilman, and I know that that's still a pending request. We are working on coordination of the departments in regards to what information we each have for outstanding violations, but the GIS system that's available to the public, my understanding is still not in full operation. MHIS is still working on that with us and other departments, and it is not up yet. At this point. I can tell you that we can provide information on request as needed to anyone. I can also tell you if someone puts in a 311 complaint, they can track their own complaint anytime they want online. But to any other person to figure out what's going on a particular property or someone else's complaint, we're not there quite yet.
How not quite yet? When can we expect it?
I'm just going to step in. I'm not sure that we can answer that question as Director Rothschild mentioned, because it involves multiple departments, not just our department, and it involves our MHIS department. So we can coordinate with them and get an answer to you to see where they're at, but we would not be the right body to tell you when that's going to be done.
I mean, I guess that's fair, right? And I can also ask them, but I guess I would suppose you would want to know, right? That feels like core to your mission is creating accountability for yourselves and for landlords. I would expect you would already have some word from them about when it's going to be ready, but apparently not. It's just hope and pray.
Understood, Councilman.
And I guess my last question is about the Landlords Task Force. So I guess probably also for Director Rothschild. I'm glad it exists. I heard you say that there's regular meetings. I've heard the mayor talk about having created an online list of the problem landlords. What are the other, and I assume also, Director Perez's stuff about blight remediation and going after blighted properties is related to this, but what are the other sort of substantive steps that are coming out of that task force to bring problem landlords, to heel? The various departments involved with the housing, the Fire Marshal's Office, Fire Department, Health and Human Services, DPW, DDS, zoning, building, housing, blight, rental license program. I know I'm missing some, police department. We meet regularly and identify them. And on the one hand, when we are successful, there's nothing to put on a list, which is the goal. But on the other hand, we do have a list available of property owners, for example, who have not applied for the rental license program that are overdue at this point, that we have put together and are prepared to disseminate. We are coming up with a program. We are working on creating a list of property owners that we would consider problem property owners or bad landlords that we could, as a city, between conversation of the various departments dealing with the same properties, identify as those landlords that are not compliant with our laws, that are avoiding us, that are not responding to us, and that are holding their properties in bad repair. And we are producing, we're working on that right now. We want to be careful and fair to the property owners that are issued orders that comply with them. We don't want to mistakenly put somebody on a list that's working with us or complying with the outstanding orders. So it's a bit of an arduous task to get a good list together that's ready for publicity. But we are in process of convening to create that list as we proceed with enforcement one by one. And when you've made that list, then what happens then? You have a list, now what?
Well, the hope is that it will, the publicity of that will further encourage compliance by those landlords. So we don't have the result of that because we haven't tried to publicize it yet, but I think the mayor wants to make the point, I don't speak for him certainly, but he wants to make the point that it's not acceptable in the city of Hartford to be a landlord that does not keep your properties to the minimum health and safety standards, and we will expose you.
That's so. Right now, that's. Well, let me ask you this, because I feel like the mayor said we already have the online list of bad landlords, but it sounds like what you're saying is we're making the list to put the list online. What am I missing?
Well, we gave the mayor a list a few months ago, and it was publicized. At that time, it consisted of 3 landlords, and that list is a small list, but those were 3 landlords who had multiple properties with extensive violations, long-term, non-compliant landlords that were clearly worth publicizing. They were on public record as being in violation in serious ways, and so that list was given, but as far as an extended list, we work every day on that list, departments together and individually, so I don't rush to put a list out to the public of people who should deserve that sort of exposure. I prefer, and it's our goal, to achieve compliance from those people, but we also won't accept them staying non-compliant. So we are working on, as best we can, producing a list of those that are, such as those first 3, non-compliant and clearly worthy of exposure.
And so, but I guess what I'm saying is we're talking about large, many of them corporate landholders. They're out of state. Like, we've seen them flout our efforts to, force them to, not all of them, but certainly some of these big ones especially, just dodge our efforts to create livable conditions for tenants. And I don't know how long this has been going on. It feels like a year. We have 3 whose names are listed online, which I think if you're that rich and that out of state, you probably don't care. And you're telling me that at some point we're going to have more. When do we go past an embarrassment and into enforcement? Like, I guess, the list is good, but it feels a lot like saying stop, or I'll say stop again.
So I didn't speak as to the enforcement piece of this. Exposure is a piece of this, but if a violation is found and an order is issued and it's not complied with, we have avenues of enforcement that we are at the same time pursuing. So the issuance on the housing code side of a citation immediately puts fines per day per violation that's outstanding at the issuance of citation, and those fines can accrue to very large amounts and become liens against the property. We do that. In cases where it's egregious or a repeat offender landlord, we have the alternative opportunity of referring the case to the Office of the State's Attorney for prosecution, consideration of prosecution by them, and we do bring cases for them for their consideration to push in the criminal side of the law. And we have our corporation counsel who is willing to bring cases on the civil side for injunction or potentially receiverships for the appropriate cases to go forward there. So exposure is a 4th arm of our efforts. It's not in lieu at all. It's something we haven't done in addition to enforcement.
Understood. I appreciate that clarification. How many landlords have you referred for criminal prosecution in the last year? If you know.
I don't know offhand. I could tell you that we have referred a number over to the State's Attorney's Office and had a series of meetings with them regarding increasing our numbers for them to take cases and the barriers that we have found in them taking cases. So we are working through opening the stream of cases that might go over to their office for criminal prosecution. But I can say that Housing Code has referred cases, a number of cases. The Fire Marshal's Office, I'm aware, has referred a number of cases, as well as both of us have given the State's Attorney's Office applications for administrative search where we couldn't get in to do inspections where required. They have been helpful with that. The housing court judges have been helpful with issuing those. So we do have a relationship. We are strengthening that now.
Have any of them actually gone to prosecution through the state's attorney?
I'm sorry?
have any of them actually gone, have they had charges brought by the state's attorney, not to conviction, but at least to prosecution? Has it gotten that far with any?
Are you saying how many have been initiated prosecution by the state's attorney?
Right, if you know. I mean, you said you were talking with them, but.
Yeah, well, we have made referrals. The decision to prosecute is not ours, it's theirs, of course, and at this point, the formal charges have not been made by the state's attorney on anything that's come over from DDS this year.
Gotcha. What about receiverships? How many of those have you initiated, or has the city initiated in the last year, if you know?
I didn't hear his question. I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
I'm sorry, receiverships. You mentioned actions for receivership as an alternative to criminal prosecution. How many of those has the city initiated in the last year, if you know?
Receiverships under General Statutes 47A56, there are none at this time. We had tried to do that on the Farmington and Gillette portfolio that was formerly owned by SDS Realty LLC, and we tried to find a receiver to take over that portfolio on behalf of the city's effort to take it out of the hands of what I would say a clearly bad landlord with a clearly bad management company. And we could not find a receiver that would do that because the income coming from those 7 occupied structures at the time was insufficient to fund the repairs needed and certainly to additionally fund the cost of the receiver themselves and the operations of those buildings. So we have been working with the mayor's office, and I think the mayor's office is working with the state because there is a provision for a revolving loan fund that would fund a receivership need on the part of a municipality that so far, to my understanding, has not been funded. So if there were a source of funding available for a receiver to tap into to run a bad property, I think we could move receiverships again. But right now, there's nobody volunteering to pay out of pocket to be a receiver that we have found.
Can the city also do it? The city can be the receiver, right? Am I wrong on that?
The city can bring the action.
The city can just take control of
the city could
to
bring the
itself.
action.
I understand the city can bring the action, but can the city also just take the role of the receiver to make the repairs and do the other things to run the building?
We do use our emergency repair fund to do repairs, but to take over the handling of a building and the occupants in it and safeguard them and do everything required of an owner, the city would likely have to hire a third party to do that, and the funding source is still a question. We wouldn't have the staffing to run a building like that. We'd have to outsource it.
You're right. So it's a question of, we have the legal authority, but not the resources, you're saying.
It has legal authority if the court grants it.
Gotcha. Okay, and this is my last question, and it might not be appropriate for you, so forgive me, but it's related also to, housing inspections and relocation. And I sense that DDS works so much with the other departments that hopefully you can tell me something on this. You'll remember, of course, all of the hullabaloo around the Sherbrooke tenants and the hotels they were sent to. And I know that's mostly an HHS relocation is their bailiwick. But one of the things that came out of that was that they were getting sent to, just substandard, totally inadequate hotels, being offered stays in just really terrible, unhealthy places. And then after all that blew over, it turned out that they were still offering people stays in the same places. The one in East Hartford, the one in the Meadows. Is that still the case? Are we still sending people to the Super 8 and the Economy Lodge over there on Main Street in East Hartford? Are we still sending them to those dumps? Do you know?
I believe so. I can also tell you when the issues started to be brought back in, and at the time Sherbrooke people were being placed at those hotels and the complaints came in, we did a couple of things. One is recognizing that hotels, motels, rooming houses, group living are all in the rental license program. The rental license program was in effect, and we did not have complaints active from those hotels when we heard about them from Sherbrooke residents. Notwithstanding, anytime even a licensed building has complaints coming from it, we get back into that building. during the 4-year license, you're not free to do whatever you want. We get complaints, we respond like we do any complaint. So we went to the properties, we inspected each of the properties within the city limits. We don't do East Hartford, obviously. And we did do some abatement that we found necessary in the common areas. Primarily, the issues that we did also find in conjunction with HPD was not housing code issues. They were nuisance and criminal activity issues, which were handled by HPD. So there were problems. The tenants were right to report it. It was responded to by HPD and HHS and DDS, Housing Code Enforcement, and we resolved everything that came in at that time. And as far as are they continuing to put there, again, I believe they are, but if there's complaints, we'll respond. We do not do routine inspections of the hotels, but we will respond to anybody who calls us over for any issue they find there.
Fair enough. I'll conclude with this. The strong recommendation that this practice change, because after Sherbrooke, sort of was sorted, I heard from a constituent who was displaced by fire and she was sent to the hotel. It's someone down by the airport, which I'm blanking on the name, but I think it's only one that's offered that's down in that neck of the woods. And she went there and she pulled into the parking lot and she saw people actively doing drugs in the parking lot and appearing to do hand-to-hand drug transactions in the parking lot. She was an older lady. She was frightened and she had nowhere to go. And I don't remember exactly how, but she got connected to me. It was after hours. I couldn't reach anyone in the city, so I paid for her hotel for the night, and then she got sorted out with some family in another part of the state. But if you have these problems, and the problems both in East Hartford where you can inspect and at the Super 8 where you can, were trenchant. They ran through the place, and you're never going to get complaints from those places because of how they operate, what their economy is, and who their clientele is. If that's the case, you got to switch it up. Right? It can't be that people who just got displaced from their house by fire now have to, in addition to all the other things they have to do, they have to call and make housing complaints? I mean, you guys got to turn that around.
So I understand, and it's not a situation that's acceptable to us either. I can tell you that when Housing Code got involved and learned about the criminal activity such as you just described, drug dealing right in front of the lady when she pulled into the lot and such, not only did HPD get involved, but the Housing Code allows the Housing Code Enforcement to issue orders to secure the building, the front and rear exits, all exits. It also allows us to order that they hire security personnel. And we have done that on several occasions, including at these hotels. You have to hire private security to walk the hotel, to walk the exterior, so that this is not happening at your premises, and to install security cameras at your premises. And we had some very high cooperation from some of those hotels, not all, and the ones that didn't cooperate up front, we made to cooperate. So we use our tools where we can, and I don't speak for HHS, but I know they have a budget on how much they can put out for the hotels. I will add one more thing. We are looking into a program to support at least a program encouraging tenants to get renter's insurance. And that is something that unfortunately a lot of tenants who are experiencing a fire or some other reason why they have to relocate don't have, and that leaves them with the city's opportunities only. And if they had renter's insurance, they could choose a hotel perhaps of a different quality than the cities can afford to offer them. And so we can maybe talk about that further as a possible other way to go on this.
All right. I think the city should do better by them. We're talking about poor people, and to say, well, your house burned down, if only you'd had renter's insurance, that is not what the city is here for. And frankly, making people make complaints after they've been displaced for any reason is not what the city is here for. This is money that we recoup from the landlords, right? So we put it out at the front, and then we're supposed to get it back. And so honestly, let's pile those costs on the landlords and litigate them and get them, because it's just, it can't be that we keep screwing our residents like this over and over again. Thank you.
Thank you. Assistant Majority Leader Clark.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good evening, everyone. I had a couple questions for DDS. Just to follow up on Councilman Mitchum's question regarding problem landlords. Is there a public facing listing of problem landlords that the residents can access?
Good evening. No, not at this time, sir. There is a list of landlords that we can produce that have not applied, that were due and now overdue to apply for the rental license program. There are 3 that were exposed in January by the mayor as problem landlords, but an active list of what we would call problem or bad landlords does not currently exist for public interface.
Okay. Do you know when that work would begin to have that document visible?
Not exactly. We are meeting, the city departments involved with housing, bad housing, are meeting, and we are comparing our list of properties that have landlords in violation of orders from the various departments or agencies. And we are in the process of trying to coordinate our enforcement efforts there on a daily basis, but we are carefully reviewing what we have and what we know about non-compliant landlords before we put that list out for public disclosure to make sure that we have it accurate and current.
Has there been any consideration or discussion regarding implementing, when you get to that point, implementing a compliance rating system such as A through F? The health department, I'm not sure if you remember, the health department used to have the rating codes for great food establishments and bad food establishments. I think it's like A through D. So kind of following the same pursuit.
It's been one of the suggestions by one of our problem task force members, particularly the fire marshal, raised that as a possibility. We have not gone far with that. We're in discussion. I think it's a good idea. I could say landlords who have complied and passed the rental license program, I would give them an A. And landlords who have not, I would give them an F. But we don't have a system at this time to grade them other than the rental license program compliance.
Okay, thank you. Now, correct me if I'm wrong on my memory. Regarding I think it's the rental license program, the certificate, if there is such, is good for how many years? Is it 3 years?
It's 4 years, sir.
4 years. Now, if it's good for 4 years, does that mean that no other inspections would be taking place during that period?
It does not. The fire marshal by state law has to inspect every residential structure and others, but residential structures with 3 or more units on a yearly basis, that is still the case no matter what your rental license age is. And housing code will go in, and so will building code, and so will blight, and so will health, and in any case where there's a complaint pending in between the year of licensing and the expiration of that license. So it depends on when people talk to us, but on a regular basis, the fire marshal goes in on a yearly.
Okay, so if there's violations, then the city can actually pull their license of housing operations, correct?
Well, the assumption is, and the hope is, that a tenant who has a problem during the 4 years will advise us that they have a problem. When we leave the building licensed, it has been inspected, except for the larger buildings in a percentage. The buildings of 25 or less units, every single unit is getting inspected for the license to issue. So if something happens to that unit, which is common, and the landlord is called, which should be the first step, and they don't resolve it with the tenant, and the tenant calls us or calls 311 more appropriately, who disperses it out to the appropriate city agency, then we respond and we pursue the compliance that tenant needs. But We don't go out to the property on more than a complaint basis in between the initial and the renewal years of the license for that program.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
My second question, and this is relative to development projects going on in the city currently. Can I get an update regarding the Albany Woodland project? What's the ETA on the completion?
Is that the only one?
And, no, it's not. Also to the Blue Hills, excuse me, the Blue Hills Rec Center project.
Yep, so,
And-
okay, keep
Okay.
going. Keep going.
No, go ahead. And the project that was taking place on the lower part of Albany Avenue that Ace Andalib was involved in?
Yep. So I'll go backwards for you. So 270 Albany Ave, I believe Ace just submitted his 90% renderings to DOH, so he's still working through the process there. Blue Hills Rec Center, that's more of a Will Diaz question, but he's on vacation. He's working in conjunction with Paul Drummy from CIP on that one. I know the last I heard of it, they were just working through change orders. And then Albany Woodland, we're still on track. They did find some potential contaminated dirt, but we were able to kind of work through that, and they're still on schedule at this point.
And thank you for the update. So the, what's the estimated completion date
I believe it's,
for Albany?
hold on, let me see if I have it. Give me 1 moment. I think it's March of 26 or June of 26. It's sometime next year. I think it's March, though.
Okay, and just for the general public knowledge, can you just indicate again what's going to be at the new center, in addition to the health department?
So you're talking tenants. So, yeah, that will be the home to the new health department. We currently have a letter of intent from Liberty Bank, and then we're talking to multiple retail tenants to fill some of the spaces.
Is the restaurant still going there?
The restaurant is not still going there. They actually closed their location in Stamford, but we are talking to another restaurant at the moment.
Okay, and where the, I forgot which street that is off Albany Avenue, I think it's Edgewood Street, where the MIOP building, I think MIOP and WIC departments for HHS were supposed to go. Are they still going there, or are they going to be in the new space with the health department?
Are you talking 885 Albany?
I think so.
Oh, you're talking where the WIC clinic is going.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, currently we're still working on with ACE to figure out funding for a parking lot to accommodate the folks at WIC. But yeah, we're still, that's still, to my knowledge, still going forward once we figure out funding.
Now, funding is going to be an issue. Is there any contingency as to where the WIC and MIOP departments are going to be located?
We have talked to a few other developers if the funding is a problem, and they do have the space requirements for WIC. One I believe is in Clay Arsenal.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Councilman Thomas.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to say, well, I do have some questions though, but before I do, I just wanted to say, out of all the budget presentations so far, I felt that this one was the most organized in terms of presentation, but also in terms of, the handout as well. So I just wanted to say, great presentation to you guys, and it was like a well-oiled machine. And John Gale said it himself. This is an important department that you guys have, and these are important conversations that we're talking about. And I do before I get into my questions, 'cause I do have two or three, I do want to echo Councilman Josh's statements. I do understand, and I agree. It would be nice for us to look into some other hotel options. I know financially that might not be possible. especially when we're talking about larger groups of people, and you got to house them. It becomes harder and harder when you're talking about larger apartment buildings to house those people, and we have to do it in the most cost-effective way, especially when we're talking about long periods of time where they're unhoused. But people shouldn't have to, when they're dealing with crises, we shouldn't put them in a place where they're dealing with another crisis. And that's just not fair. And to his statement, and like that woman reached out to him, just by chance, but I'm sure there's tons of stories of people that didn't reach out and they just dealt with the issue. And that's not right. It's just not right. And, something that, he said was, that's not how the city should be. And I just agree with that, Heart is in our name, so we gotta show some love, so I do have some career history in community engagement, and I wanted to ask this question because I really didn't understand it, but over 200 residents received information on housing assistance through outreach efforts via information sessions, mailers, emails, community meetings, etc. And this is marked as a highlight for the year, this past year. 200 residents is less than 1% of our residents here in Hartford. And so I just don't understand how it could be a highlight, unless I'm reading it the wrong way in the sense of maybe out of all the mailers that we sent out, 200 people reached out to us. I don't know if that's the way it's supposed to be, written, and I'm just reading it the wrong way. But, saying that only 200 people received information, that doesn't sound too good. It's not a big highlight. And to Ms. Rothschild's point, to get information out about rental insurance, we would have to beef up that amount of residents that we're reaching, because that's important information to get to people. I do think it's important for us to share that information, and we have to put that out there. You have to forgive me, the Uptown Building Project. What's that one? I'm sorry. The Uptown Building Project is currently in construction, resulting in 7 new rental units. Where's that?
So that's a project that's going on Albany Avenue. ACE is actually redeveloping. It's a property that they're rehabbing. 7 rental units will be rehabbed, right, and we're using home funding as well as other funding sources to renovate that property.
Is that the Albany Woodland project?
No.
Okay.
It's separate.
So Albany where?
1468, is it? Is it 1468 Albany Avenue?
I believe that it's 1468 Albany, and if I could just add a quick comment to Director Kayes' comment. The way funds work in the department depends which division you're in. In her division, as you know, it is for our most vulnerable residents. These will be low-income apartments. These apartments have been offline for at least 4 or 5 years. I'm not quite sure. And so when we were approached with a plan to add some additional money to leverage the private owner's money, bringing 7 apartments online, it might not seem like a big deal, but it's a big deal because we are so short in apartments in the city of Hartford. So that's why it's on her slide, because within her department, that is a success and a win.
Yeah. Well, I think any new construction is a win in the city. So salute to that. I wrote something else down. I'm sorry.
And if I may, Councilmember Thomas, in addition to what Director Kayes does with direct mailings from her division of housing, when our folks and our inspectors are out in the field, or when we send out notices of violations to the owner of a 3-family that has a roof that needs repair, we're stuffing our envelopes and we're emailing to those owners flyers with information about, like, for example, the Hartford Community Loan Fund. Director Kayes has done a great job in providing us with stationery and information that we can provide to the constituents that we're serving when we come across them, either in the field or when we're communicating with them in the course of formal enforcement. So we're doing that in addition to what they're doing as a team, and in order to sort of broaden the message that we want to get out there.
Of course, and and I feel like I know those things are happening. I just, like, when I see just 200 people, I don't know if that's just, I don't know. Like, I don't know if that's just me reading it the wrong way, or like, something's just being lost in translation for me, but I know you guys are reaching more people than that and giving out information about the services that we have, and about, these programs and things that they can get involved within the city. I don't know if we just need to track that better, or just beef up the number.
Yeah, we'll look into that. You're right. There's that vastly undercut.
Yeah, that's
a bad bullet point.
Yeah, it's less than 1%.
If I could just add to that, so,
yeah.
So recently, we do want to beef up our numbers. So recently, what I've actually just started is we are actually driving around and looking for properties that need assistance from us so that we can take the addresses down. Some of our staff is looking up phone numbers so we can call people and say, hey, we drove by your property, we saw you might need some help. So we're doing that, and we're also drive-bys, and then, calling back. So sometimes we do get, so people call us, or we'll call people, or they'll inquire and they haven't responded. So we're actually initiating calls to those people back to say, hey, you inquired, but we haven't heard anything from you. Are you interested? We still have funding. So we are reaching out more now. So yeah, we'll beef that number up.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. I'm happy to hear that. And I did find my last note on the Developmental Services Housing Strategic Initiatives page. Develop programs to create home ownership utilizing the $6.5 million. And it says units on vacant city-owned lots. Where exactly are we thinking, or is it kind of just randomly picked? Do you guys have like this is like, the top lot we want to get, the next lot after that? Kind of like, just where are we thinking about development's going to be?
So this is something that Economic Development teamed up with the Housing Department to kind of tackle, since Economic Development kind of manages all the vacant lots and the city-owned properties. We figured it'd be a perfect fit. The mayor's initiative to really increase home ownership in the city, combined with that, we figured it could be synergistic in nature. So right now, Selena and I have actually been working on a program that it looks like the governor is matching funds for, to essentially fill some of the gap and potentially bringing potentially, again, this is all very new, but potentially either modular or stick-built homes to some of these vacant lots. So, and then from there, how it's structured, still in its infancy, but we're still working on it.
Got that. I get that. I would be interested in hearing that, though, because that's awesome information, and I'm sure people will want to hear about that. And you got to celebrate the wins. Like those are wins. And I think, like, when I look at this presentation and hear what you guys are doing, like, I don't know if other people in the city, in terms of residents, but maybe even like other employees, or maybe even, us as council people, or, other elected officials throughout the city are hearing about these wins until budget time. These are the things to celebrate. Like, you guys are doing some amazing work, and like, you guys might want to put out a newsletter, quarterly or something like that, to talk about some of the work that you guys are doing, and beef up some support. I think that's it for my notes, and yeah, that's it. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you, Councilman.
Of course.
I think Councilman Gale will close us out with a couple of questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I want to just sort of throw another thing out there, as well as nitpick about one small thing. One of the issues that we all hear from constituents a lot is, quality of life stuff, right? And one of the quality of life issues, some of these quality of life issues end up being zoning enforcement issues. I haven't heard much recently, but I know there was a time when I was hearing from a lot of folks in the South End complaining about their neighbors parking their cars on their front lawn. Small thing, but if it's on your street, it's really annoying, and it's certainly devaluing the property. It's kind of that broken window syndrome that we talk about. And I believe those are zoning violations, kinds of things that, citations could be issued for. So 17 vacancies in your department. We know it's not as though you're just spilling over with folks that can go out and handle all of these things. We got a Hartford Parking Authority. Hartford Parking Authority's got folks riding up and down every street in Hartford all the time. So the thought occurred to me that maybe they could do the enforcement. Well, there's a state statute. The state statute is very clear as to what a parking authority of any kind can do. But state statutes can be amended. For 2 years in a row, or maybe 3 years in a row now, Representative Ritter had this in his batch. I don't know if he pushed it forward. The mayor was familiar with this. I don't know if he pushed it forward. But I'll bet if you suggested it, it might start to move forward, which is having the legislature amend the statutory authority for the Hartford Parking Authority. It's got, I think, 11 things that they can do. And you could just add a 12th one that says, such other things as the municipality may designate. Right? Something along those lines. And then, who knows? Maybe you could find some additional uses for them that could also be helpful for you. Now, there's always a downside to these things, that people then get aggressive and all of a sudden we're flooded with complaints. How come I'm getting these violations? Don't they have better things to do? Which kind of brings me to my little nitpicking point. I live in a very historic house. I'm in a historic district. My front steps are wooden steps. I'm kind of assuming that when one of my front steps gets pretty deteriorated and I have to replace it, that I can just go ahead and replace it. I don't think that I have to go to the Historic Commission in order to replace one of my front steps. Am I wrong about that?
It's possible.
Yes, Councilman, in many of those cases, if changes to a historic building or a building in a historic district are visible from the street, you may be required to go to the Historic Preservation Commission for that approval.
I'm talking about like kind here. I'm talking about taking a tread from a wooden front step, an oak tread, and replacing an oak tread with an oak tread. Do I have to go to the Historic Commission to get permission to run down to Home Depot, buy the tread, and put it onto my front porch when mine's deteriorated?
It's a determination that's made by staff, and in many of those cases it can be administrative as well. So that's what the majority of such cases are.
Let me respectfully suggest that that is over-regulation that drives people absolutely crazy. And if that's how our city's being administered, we need to change it. I don't think the average homeowner anywhere, I think they would be stunned to know that before they can fix some of their property, they've got to go in front of a commission, get scheduled, have a hearing, just to fix what's right there in front of them. So that's my little nitpicking. I don't need an answer from you.
Well,
I see Randall is
I just want to tell you what we're doing. Historic
well, I hope you're
is a
changing
challenge.
your ways, because
Yes.
you've got far more important things to do, and I think you all know what I'm talking about. A very specific example, and I don't know what happened to this poor guy because he was in front of the ZBA this last week. But these things seem to me to be an absolute waste of your time when I'm trying to get you more manpower to do important things.
Just one point to add to that. I'm sorry. It is a matter of the ordinance that we are following, and so we're trying to adhere to that as closely as possible.
Then let's change the ordinance. Let's change it. We don't have to follow things that don't make sense.
Yeah, we heard. Agreed.
All right. Well, now we're going to close this out, but we're not. See, I always look first.
Sorry.
I always close it and then open it again. So, Councilman Thomas.
Yeah, I did remember because I was flipping through, but I did just want to say, and I'm going to say another thing after this, but I appreciate looking at the blighted properties, the these are some properties I walked by like, all my life. And seeing them look better like this is really nice. And I've noticed it out in the community, and I know other residents do too. So that's amazing work. I will say to Councilman Gale's point around historical properties. I love historical properties, and I think sometimes it's like heavy is the head that wears the crown. It kind of comes with the territory of the property, and I know from a historical standpoint, as long as you're not changing. Like the intent of like what the property is used for, or it's like a major change, you shouldn't have to go through all those hoops. I would hope, but if it is to the level of, as Councilman Gale is saying, that like this one step, is something you kind of got to jump through a hoop, that becomes tedious, and I get that. But it's important for a historical city such as Hartford to keep our history. And I don't, just want us to just throw that by the wayside either, because I kind of felt like just now we were just laughing about history and saying like, oh, let's just put that all away. It's an important part of our city, and you live in a beautiful, neighborhood, Councilman Gale, and if everyone just started changing whatever they wanted on their house without any oversight, it wouldn't look like that in 50 years, So that's all I just wanted to say.
No problem. And there's somewhere in between. That's all. I'm a big fan of common sense. We'll get there on this one.
Well, before closing out, we would like to congratulate William Diaz for his promotion to Assistant Director. He is almost like a PEDH committee resident, very knowledgeable and always very helpful in our PEDH committees. So congratulations to William Diaz. And now with that being said, seeing that there are no more questions, thank you for your presentation, Jeff, and to the rest of the leadership team. And I call this meeting adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.